Welcome to another episode of What the Crap. I'm Megan Sneddon, journalist and thinker of thoughts of unfathomable depths.
She thinks she's smart or something. And I'm Krystal Brandt, authenticity coach and owner of KrystalBrandt.com. And today, drumroll please.
Oh, that's glass.
We have a very special guest. His name is Jason Goldberg. He is life coach extraordinaire and owner of Meometry.com. And we've known Jason now for a year and a half, I think.
72
Probably
years.
way
yeah,
too long.
And a couple lifetimes, let's be honest. And
Totes.
we have way too much fun together. And we thought, of course, let's bring Jason on. So Jason, say hello to everyone.
Hello to everyone. Welcome to What the Crap. It even says it on the chalkboard.
Oh,
What the crap.
He did his homework, guys. That's what we assigned to him. He followed through.
Well, the homework was actually learn to read. Right,
Oh.
because I was illiterate, so
I haven't
what
mastered
the
that
crap? Yay.
Did it. Came ready.
So good.
Yeah, so today's topic, it's a good one. And it's basically it's summed up in having a dream and actually fucking doing it. The actual difference between it. All of us have these dreams in our heads, and it's a matter of not of whether we actually get there and get the courage to go and do it. And all of us have been there. We've all been on our own individual journeys towards making our dreams happen. And there's all kinds of places we can go. So what the crap is with that, guys? What the crap is with dreaming and actually fucking doing it?
Yeah, I don't get it because it happens to me all the time. I'm definitely not immune, right? I have the wow and the fantasy, and the glamorized, this is so cool. This is going to be the greatest thing ever. And then I just want to stick in that, right? Just stay with the wow and never move to the how. That's the fun. Who wants to do the how? Someone's like, oh my God, that's a great idea. How are you going to do that? And I'm like, cool, unfriend, back to the wow. So yeah, so that I totally get that for myself in the past. And I'm sure all of us, people we work with and friends with and just whatever. It's we have this fantasy, but what do we do to turn it into a plantasy? How do we actually move it forward?
Oh, shit.
Dude, I love how you're owning these words right now.
I make up words and schlocks flaws all the time.
Oh, man. Hopefully incorporating some of those words. The reason why, besides the fact that you're an awesome person that we wanted to bring you on the show, is because, I don't know, we've had several conversations about this topic, about the difference between, dreaming and actually friggin' doing something about it. And one thing I've heard you talk about before with people is, people that get all caught up in the, what is my purpose? And what's my meaning? And how do I do it? How... So I guess when you come across some of your clients that are in that, but what's my purpose phase? And I really want to do this big thing. How do you coach them through that to get them down the path of actually friggin' doing something?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And that goes back to, in my opinion, the whole romanticizing purpose and passion and there's a thing. I'm meant to do this one thing. And it's oh my God. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Megan. I'm meant to do this. What the crap is with phallic fruit? So I think we romanticize. Hi, Alicia, my wife. We're meant to we always romanticize these things and we have to find this one thing and this purpose and this passion and this whatever. And then when we don't find that thing, or when we think we find it and then it's not just rainbows coming out of our butthole all day and everything just perfectly falls into place and it's just everything's perfect, then there's something wrong with me and that's not my real purpose and dolphins just fuck with everything. And can I curse, by the way? Is that okay?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, cool.
This is called
cool.
What the Crap for a reason.
Yeah, okay. So for me it's I was always searching for my passion and my purpose and all this stuff. And even I did an interview with somebody a few weeks ago and they're like, when did you realize coaching was your passion and your purpose? And I'm like, I haven't yet. That hasn't happened. I don't know that coaching is my purpose and I don't know that coaching is my passion, because to me, that's living in the land of the noun, right? I'm Jason the coach, right? And so if tomorrow I decide I want to be Jason the humanitarian and move to Haiti, then does that mean like my identity is gone as a coach and everything I've done as a coach is for nothing and I wasn't on the path and all this bullshit? And so like instead of worrying about being a noun like I was for all these years, and I know you guys can relate to this, like, you know, I was Jason the IT guy or Jason the engineer or Jason the entrepreneur. And every time I had some kind of transition out of that, there was always a period where I'm like, okay, fuck, then that means I'm nobody, because like that identity's gone now. I'm no longer Jason the engineer that spent 15 years in IT. So I guess I'm nobody until I find a new noun that I can associate with. And so my goal now is to live as a verb, is to always be living in a place where I'm doing something. And I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday. I'm just taking off my watch because it keeps hitting the glass and it's annoying and it's going to break the glass. I was talking to somebody about this yesterday and she wasn't really getting it. And I was just bringing up, the first thing that came to me is like somebody who says they want to make children's lives better. Like that's their purpose, is to make children's lives better. Like that's a verb, right? And that's great because now you can make that happen in any number of ways as a noun. You could be a school teacher, you could be a nurse, you could be a parent. Like there's so many things that you could do if you're clear on what your verb is. Like the impact you want to make, the service that you want to contribute. Figure that out in some way and be as non-specific as possible if you want, just to start, and then play with what nouns kind of fill in the gaps there. Does that make sense?
I love that you just gave all of us permission to not be specific and to just like say it out loud. It's such an imperfect process, and not to mention when you actually are encountered with someone that does have a clear purpose. The reason it's so inspiring is because it takes a lot of friggin' work to get there.
Yes.
That person's been working behind the scenes, getting clear, letting go of shit that does not serve them anymore. Most of the time it's ego crap that gets in the way. So yeah, it's a process, and there's no destination either.
Right.
It's
So
not
what
like
the
we're
crap
in
with having that figured out like the first day you started on your path? Like what the crap? Seriously.
Yeah.
So
Seriously.
what the crap is behind that is perfectionism and all of its bullshittiness. Just made that shit up. Honestly, perfectionism is like the wrecker of all good things. It like sucks the joy out of it because it's never friggin' good enough. So like,
so what does that do for you? Like when you're acting from like Krystal the perfectionist? I'm sure that never happens, but if it ever happens,
ever,
it doesn't happen to me ever. It was Monday. So what do you think is behind that for you?
So behind the perfectionism, what's behind it?
Yeah, for you, say you want to do something, you're like super excited about it, and then you're like, you don't make it happen, and it's because you want it to be perfect.
It's because I think twofold. One, I think I have to have it all figured out before I actually take any action. And two, if I don't come across as perfect, what are they going to think of me? Right? So it's the classic, like, you know, I don't know, judgment factor of what if I present in the world without my shit together? And especially you and I share, Jason, a similar background of coming from corporate, and there's an entire culture around that of not showing your weakness because people prey on it. And it's like a political game. If you present in a way where you haven't, you know, you need a couple extra days because you actually took time to do a better job than what was expected in the project plan, you can't say that because it looks like you've been fucking around the whole time. You know, that's crap. So when you get into a more authentic space of living from your truest desires and getting that purpose out into the world and living from those action places, it's all your other junk, all those bad habits come to the surface, you know, and it's a process to pick them out from their root though. Because how many times have we started a diet like, I'm going to lose 5 pounds because like I was comparing myself to like the girl like yesterday and she was like really skinny and I feel like less than. Versus like, holy shit, holistic health is really fucking important to me because I don't want to like be sick in a hospital bed at age 50 or 60 with my kids, like watching that go down. Like that's rooted in a different place. And to do the work to rip out all the stuff that's getting in the way from you living from that truth, it's worthwhile work, but it doesn't just like snap your fingers and happen.
You know what I would love to see, and I didn't plan on this coming up at all during our conversation, but it's just something that you brought up that I think is really powerful. So I think that when we're talking about people who are reinventing themselves and trying to work on entrepreneurial endeavors, or you know the things that like all of us are doing, that there's maybe a little more inherent permission to be yourself. And we talk all about vulnerability. And I don't know if do you guys know a lot about anti-fragility? Have you heard about anti-fragile?
No, I'd like for you to talk about that though.
That would be really cool. So I'll go back to that 1 second. So,
Okay.
so the thing that I wonder about, and I really haven't thought about it until now, how does that happen? How can we make that happen in the corporate world, right? So maybe people don't want to become entrepreneurs, but they still want to feel authentic. And like you just said, like the culture is completely built around masks, politics, competition, comparison. Do you guys think that's even possible to happen in a corporate environment?
I think that it is. I think it's all just a matter of framing it in a certain way. Like if we change the nature of how we come across to others from like having to be a certain way or having to have stuff figured out or fit into a role so that we can make everyone else in like the tribe or the community society feel more comfortable and make it more of a flexible playground where we're all experimenting, growing, learning, expanding together. I think that would change a lot. Because even going back to what you were saying, like the difference for like dreaming versus doing for me is shame, because like how am I going to come across to people, or how am I going to be judged when they find out that I don't identify as a noun because I have this like crazy creative imagination that's always doing different things. I'm like, one day it's photography, one day it's film, one day it's writing. And I think it would do a lot in our society if we just allowed one another to be more than one thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I think that's probably like the most uphill battle in corporate, is because that's a top down thing, right? That's something that you have to. What the crap is with non-wireless headsets?
I know, right? Seriously.
You know what I did yesterday? I was talking to Alicia, my wife, for those of you who don't know, and I was doing something, and I went to like scratch my face, and then this weird involuntary muscle thing like went and like hit my glasses off my face. So I was like, suave, like just going like, "Hey, how you doing?" And it's just, I'm like, what the crap is with involuntary muscle spasms? So now that we've taken care of that, see you next time. No, I'm kidding.
Here's the dreaming and doing, guys. We're out.
Here's the dreaming and doing. 2 fingers. So you were just saying something really profound before you were going down again.
Which doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't really, yes, it does matter and it is important. But I want to go back to what you were saying about anti-fragile, because I don't know what that is and I'd like to hear about it.
So anti-fragility, there's a book called Anti-Fragile. It's by a guy named Nicholas Taleb Nassim, or Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Nassim Nicholas Taleb, I think. If you Google those 3 words in any order, I'm guessing he'll come up.
You'll get it.
But he talks about this thing, anti-fragility, which is amazing. So what he wanted to do was he wanted to find the opposite of fragile. And what we typically talk about as being the opposite of fragile in our society is resilient. Right? So if you're fragile, you break. If you're resilient, you bounce back. But if that's the best we can ever hope for, is to be resilient, to bounce back, then we're kind of getting ourselves back to 0, right? So if fragile is something hits you and you go to a -10, then resilient is something hits you and you go down to a negative something and then back to 0. And it's like, well, isn't there something better than that? Can't we flourish and grow as opposed to just getting back to this baseline of 0? And so he came up with this term, the opposite of fragility, or the opposite of being fragile. He's super smart, is anti-fragile, right? Real inventive. So, but it's really cool. So when you're anti-fragile, you take the thing that is trying to tear you down and you don't just absorb it. You don't just take it in the chest and say, I'm going to be okay. You actually get stronger as a result of it, right? And so this is there's a bunch of studies going on with this in the military and the armed services about this notion of post-traumatic growth. Right, as opposed to post-traumatic stress. It's actually taking what's happened to you and growing from it. And so the easiest analogy, and this may be directly from him, I don't remember now, but the easiest analogy is if a box is marked fragile, right, there's glass inside of it. When you hit the glass, it breaks, it shatters, it's fragile, okay? You go on the next step up, resilient, is like a kettlebell, one of those big metal like workout kettlebells. You can punch the crap out of that thing and nothing happens. It's resilient, right? It's just going to stay the same. It's not going to really get hurt. But when you take it to the next level up, you look at, actually, a better analogy is wind and fire, okay? So when you are fragile, you're a candle. You're a candle in the wind. No, you're a candle. And when wind comes by the candle, what happens?
Goes out.
Yeah, it's extinguished. It's immediately extinguished. It's fragile. You could relight the candle, and in that sense, the candle becomes resilient. But in no scenario does wind make a candle stronger. Okay. But if you look at a forest fire, right? Same element, fire, and you take wind and pump it into a forest fire, what happens? It
It
gets big.
grows.
It grows. It gets more powerful. It gets stronger. So it's finding a way to take things that would normally knock us down, or things that would normally knock us down and we bounce back, and to transcend that and actually become better off because of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I'm trying to like bring that home into my own world. So, and that's such a cool, that we've all been, so whoa, back up. Let's get way ahead of us. Back up. So many things to say. Brain exploding. Okay, so the three of us met through a similar life coach. And
Match.com.
Match.com, hey. Jacob Sokol, and he had an inner circle group. So we all have a foundation of doing like core value work and figuring out what's important to us. And we've been on this journey. And part of one of his practices, which I really love, is like, okay, all this idea, like the idea has become basically entertainment without that action piece. So as I'm hearing you with that analogy, I'm trying to bring it home into my own world of like an example of where the fire turned into, like a firestorm. So, and I'm struggling to do that over here. So is there something in your world, Jason, that you've been able to relate that to really bring it home for us so that I can get there too?
Yeah, kind of on a regular basis, right? So it takes some creativity. That's kind of the point of it, is you have to have fun with it and you have to be creative with it. So, God, I could think of so many. So one of the things that was a big deal for me, and I'm just gonna get naked. I'm just gonna get super vulnerable.
Go
and just
there,
show
baby.
off,
Go
just
there.
Show
Test
everything
for vulnerability.
off. My tassels are in the dry cleaner, so I couldn't use that today. So I was scheduled. I was really excited towards the end of 2014. You guys know I did a couple of courses for Entheos. And so the thing that I really wanted to do, that I was really excited about, was to do a symposium with them, to do a virtual conference symposium. They kind of changed the name at one point or another. Yeah. And so when I was doing my planning at the end of 2014, that became the crux. That was going to be the thing at like the top of the pyramid, and that was going to funnel into a bunch of other projects that I was going to be doing, and I was really excited, and this was going to be the thing. And so it was really funny because one day I had spent like 5 hours kind of planning out my 2015, and right at the end of the year, sometime in December, and that was the thing that came out of it. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm really set now. I pruned away all this other crap that didn't fall in line, and I was feeling really focused and really on it, and that was the top. Literally 2 hours later, I get an email from Entheos saying they're changing their business model, no more symposiums. If it didn't already start production, it's done. And mine was supposed to start that month, so I was done. And so it took all of 3 seconds. All of the work that I do around owner-victim and being an owner and choosing to be an owner went out the window. Never heard of it before. Don't give a shit.
I love that.
Fuck all the money I've spent, all the time that I spent coaching other people, coaching myself, out the window. You got to be kidding me. This cannot be happening. And so I was in my little shame spiral for a little while. That's when I was fragile. So then I get back to a level of resilience by saying, listen, no matter what happens, I'm not dying, right? I always have choices. I can always do other things. So I was resilient, but at the same time, I'm like, but that fucking sucks. Like, that was really what I wanted to do next year. I was so excited about that. There was so much energy behind it. And I don't blame those guys at all. This is part of their business. But just for me, I was like, well, that kind of sucks. So the way I became anti-fragile in that situation is to say, well, wait a minute. Why do I need them to interview people that inspire me and share that with other people?
Oh, here we go.
Honestly, this is making me think of an example that I want to talk about after you go.
Good. Yeah, I want to hear it. So why do I need that? Would it have been great to help, to work with them and get support from them? Absolutely. But it in no way, shape, or form cuts me off from doing what it is I wanted to do. So I get stronger because I say, holy shit, if I had not had the opportunity to even sign up with them for this, I wouldn't have known that it was even possible. And now that I just won't be partnering with them, it just means that I had a quick lesson in how this works, and now I'm going to go do it on my own.
Yes!
So rad.
Woo!
Claim them opportunities.
And then what was really cool about it is then there's now it bridges into, and this would be a whole separate conversation, but this whole like do what you love and the money will follow thing, like you guys have heard that before, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's total bullshit. What I think instead is, but I'll tell you why, and it's relevant to the story. I say do what you love, and you open yourself up to see where opportunities for money exist. right? So maybe you love playing video games. I'm not saying that if you play video games all day, you're going to make money, right? Do what you love and the money will follow. That's bullshit. But if playing video games puts you in like this creative and receptive and innovative and high-spirited mood, you're going to be a lot more apt to see opportunities outside of video games for you to make money, right? So anyway, so the reason I say all that is because I realize that if I'm going to do what I love, that is bringing people together, sharing wisdom, interviewing, putting it out to people. That made me much more open to where now, as of like the past week and a half, I have an opportunity to do this now on a scale that literally is 100 or more times larger than it would have been before.
Dude, Jason.
And I never could have guessed that would happen, and it still may not happen. That doesn't matter.
That's true.
The key is just being open to it happening.
And
it's yours.
And it's mine. And it's mine. So does that make sense as an example of anti-fragility?
Yes. I'm so glad. And that's the work. That's the actually fucking doing it, making your dreams happen, is getting these ideas and crashing down and learning from them. And even as we're all in sort of a coaching mentorship capacity with our careers, and we're doing the work all the time, we have to be able to walk the talk to be able to guide people towards the same skill set. Totally. And it's always the truest test when shit comes down, right? Where are you then? And who are you? What are you made of? And what are you choosing? What are you choosing? How are you showing up in the world then?
Yep.
And I like, Jason, that you even addressed the shame spiral, or that the fact that when it went down and that the expectation that you had wasn't met, that you actually felt all of that and allowed yourself to feel everything that went along with that, the feelings of disappointment or shame or things that came up, because that's another part of it too. But then the choice part comes in, because it's like, okay, well, this is not a takedown. This is an opportunity for choice. It is mind-blowing just how much I have realized that over the last year, that the difference in your life is the way that you're choosing to look at things. Because stuff happens no matter what.
Yeah.
Right.
Stuff will always happen. And it's okay, giving yourself permission to feel it, grieve it, move through it, express it, whatever. And then also choosing okay, well, there's a number of ways that I could view this. This could be what makes me. This could be what breaks me. This could be something that leads me forward into creating something that's mine and really unique, or not.
Yeah, exactly. And you said it too. That's one of the things. I think Christine Hassler is somebody who's written about this. The whole spiritual bypass thing. Have you heard this term before?
I haven't.
No.
Okay, so it's I think it's really running rampant in personal development. Is that when something bad happens, and I'm saying bad in quotations for obvious reasons. It's whatever you make of it. But when something non-happy happens to you, spiritual bypass is, I'm not going to feel that. I'm just going to find the silver lining immediately and be done. I'm going to move through it as quickly as possible and just be super positive. And it's you don't have to do that. It's not, you're not being a victim by feeling whatever you feel, right? By me being in that shame spiral, I was choosing that. It's always a choice, whether you think it is or not. I was choosing to be that way. And that's okay, because in my life as a coach, it's great because it allows me to remember what it feels like. So when my clients are in that place, I'm just not oh, get over it. I'm oh shit, I remember what that feels like. You can feel that for a little while, and then the question is, now what? Right? Given that, now what? What do I want to create? What do I want to do with it? So however long that process takes, you're the one who knows that best. You'll know if you're pitying yourself or if you're truly processing something, and only you can answer that. There's no hard and fast time limit. But I think it's important to feel what you feel, to welcome it in, to not fight it, judge it, rationalize it, or argue with it. Invite it in the same way you invite in love and happiness and everything else, and it will pass as quickly as it needs to.
Honestly, because that's where those core realizations come from. I remember, Jason, when you and I were talking maybe a few months ago now, and we were having a discussion on a dream that I had, and should I go do this or what? And in that phase of kind of burnout that I had reached, in our conversation, you were like, I see a common thread in your purpose. If I hadn't actually expressed those real feelings with you of what I was going through at the time, we wouldn't have reached that. And he's like, the common thread is, you just always need to be up to something. And I'm like, oh my God, that's it. I'm an instigator. There's my noun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's really cool. I love
Oh,
that.
and that was the reference that I was going to make about this.
Oh yeah.
Unfragile, anti-fragile.
Anti-fragile. Yeah.
I almost want to say anti-gravity of like, oh, bring some Dan Brown in here. This was seriously not that long ago, end of last year, that it's like I woke up one morning and chose to make a colossal shift. I wasn't liking exactly where I was in my life, and I mean that in a number of different ways. And I had to be really tough on myself and like actually like leave a relationship, leave a city that I was living in, which also meant leaving my friend group that I was hanging out with at the time to move somewhere else, and like shifting a lot of like career goals and things I was working with at that time, and really like digging in and unearthing some emotional stuff. And at the point at which we talk, I was like in the spiral of like clearing all of that stuff out. And Krystal was also there for a lot of it too. Like I remember one night when it was just so much, and I'm like curled up in her lap like a little egg and just like crying. And when you and I had talked, Jason, I was like, oh, I have this idea. And the thing that's driving the idea is just this core desire to be of service to people. And I feel like I have this dream to be of service to people in certain ways, but I can't achieve that because of my financial state. Like I was the most broke that I have ever been in my life, like, you know, in the hundreds mark. And that was when I got this like refund from Apple of $310. I was like, do you think it's insane to like spread this across charitable acts instead? And he was like, no, that is great. Because there's the anti-fragile or unfragile reframe, right?
Yep.
Is that my financial situation on top of all the other emotional stuff could have taken me down. But Jason's like, this will be so good for you because you'll be out there actually doing stuff like one step at a time, like checking things off this charity list that you want to do, which then gets your energy up, because being of service and being creative and always being up to something like feeds you. And then once you're rolling with it, then you'll be able more equipped to like see those opportunities. And then it was like, so when I was able to get into the motion of like, okay, I am not a victim, like just because my finances this way, they're just results on paper of like past choices. I can move past that and doing what I can to move past that. And I'm in the energy of doing. And now I'm like the best financial state that I've been in a really long time.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. You're
yes
fucking
to money.
awesome.
Slow clap.
Rock
yes
it!
to giving.
Slow clap.
Yes to serving.
You're like Oprah. You were so close to Oprah just now. If you would have, please give me a car. Just point at me and give me a car, please.
You were gonna go. And you were gonna go.
I love how in the audience, it doesn't matter if they get a car or they get a muffin tin. They're like,
like, instead of the 310 challenge, next time it'll be the Mazda challenge.
That's awesome. And there's something too with the anti-fragile. This just came up, and do you mind if I just share an exercise kind of around anti-fragility? Is that cool?
Great. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So this is something you can do after something has happened, but it's also, I think it's really fun to do if you have fear about getting started with something, because that can be it, right? Like, you don't think about anti-fragility when you start something and you're afraid. You just think of falling on your face and dying. So literally and figuratively, depending on what it is you're doing. So something I've done with clients before, and it was modeled for me by another coach that's really cool, is if you're scared about something in the beginning, or you have just a deep fear about something happening, the two people that I worked with on this that I can think off the top of my head, one was afraid of what her life would be like if her husband died. And one was afraid of what her life would be like when another relationship she was in was ending, right? And she actually was closer. Like the woman who was scared of her husband dying, her husband didn't have any health issues. She just had this fear. The woman who was worried about the relationship ending, it was actually ending. So it was even closer. But it hadn't happened yet. So the exercise with both of them is, and it can get really morbid really quickly, but it's really fun still, is you make a list of all the things that are going to be better in your life when that thing happens.
Ooh.
So imagine sitting down with somebody and saying, if your husband dies, let's make a list of all the things that are going to be better about your life.
Oh, wow.
Dude, that's
so some
bold.
morbid shit.
That's so bold.
Totally.
Yeah.
It is. But it's about like, it's about having fun too. So like one of the answers was, I finally get the bed to myself.
Yeah.
I can go out and date. Like, all these things that you feel really bad saying. But once you get it out there, it's just a great way to clear all the fears and stuff, and to recognize like your life does go on. Right? There will be things that will be sad and there will be things that will be happy, but life is still moving forward. So even if they're just outlandish, ridiculous, creative answers, it just, I think, shifts your mindset a little bit.
That's so cool because it keeps you in touch before something goes down of the possibilities of what can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time we can theorize all day long and come up with really fantastical, fabulous ideas of how fucking terrible shit will be.
Catastrophic, yeah.
Dude,
Catastrophic devastation of life. And until we actually take that step and that action, we're like, oh shit, it's not actually that bad over here. And that keeps you in touch with that energy because no matter what will happen, I can figure it out. Like having that resilient attitude of no matter what happens, I trust that I can get through it. I mean, seriously, let's just take a second to honor and celebrate all the shit that has gone down in each of our worlds, including our viewers. Wow. And that is the tenacity of the human spirit. No matter what goes down, that's why we go to the movies. And that's why we watch the hero's journey in action in each other's lives and in the movies and in the books. Because it reminds us of what's dormant inside of us that wants to come out. So the very thing that scares us and keeps us held in time is the very thing that's going to make our life that much better. You just got to go do it.
That's right. It's absolutely true. And there's something, too, to be said about going back to this notion of actually getting started on something that you want to do. Like, what the crap with having all this energy around something and then not getting started.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of that comes from, and the coaching world is partially to blame for this, right? The coaching world is notorious, and I'm a coach myself.
I can't wait to hear what you're going to say.
Yeah, it's notorious to me. It's something that it goes along with like the purpose and passion thing we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Not everybody has to dream so fucking big.
That came up recently. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's
It doesn't. Not everything has to be so huge.
Yeah,
This was something that I was just talking to my coach Steve Chandler about last week, and he drew this image that I'll draw for you, and hopefully, you know what, I have a permanent marker, which means it'll be easier to see on camera. So he drew this.
This is so great.
I love it. Art lesson.
Okay, so this does not stand for cubic zirconia. That is your comfort zone. Okay.
Comfort zone.
Oh, okay. Comfort zone.
This is our comfort zone. Okay, and then 90% of the coaching world will say, "Hey, person. You need to get here. That's the only way that you're a good, meaningful, fulfilled person. How are we going to get there tomorrow and not be scared? And fuck yeah.
And
that's horseshit. So here, and that's how I think the majority of us feel when we have something exciting we want to do. We say, here's our comfort zone, and then fucking out here somewhere in the ether, it's fucking horrible, right?
Sell off all your stuff, quit your relationship, your job, and move away from home.
So what about that? What about this new circle that I just drew around the outside of the comfort zone, and we just make a little teeny jump to that? Look, you can't even see the bullshit one in the picture. Okay, now you can. I'm taking it away again. That's where the growth happens, right? That's where that compound effect happens, where you move just a little bit out of your comfort zone. That's doable. That's not scary to me. Is that scary to you to think about moving that far out of your comfort zone?
That's less.
It's less, right? And that's the part that ego plays, is like, that's the grandiose stories that we tell ourselves, that it's going to be so terrible and so difficult, when really the way to that outer point is through the many steps along the way. Yes. But here's the thing, like, not to discount that either, because that step, there's even visuals of like the dot is on the literally the edge of the box or the circle. And that shit can be life-changing.
Yep.
So it's not to discount like, oh, well, you're doing that and I just did this and no big deal. Like, no, it's a big deal. Because where I am, it's like that quote of comparing your chapter 20 to someone else's chapter like 50, whatever.
Oh, that's awesome.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you can't compare, because it completely devalues all the things that they did to get to that point and all the things you're doing to get to exactly where you are. It all matters.
Absolutely.
And that's
to me, that's the big thing. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, that's even changed the way that I view people, or that I interact with people. Like, I love to hear people's stories when they're talking about, oh, my stuff's not all together, and I'm like, oh, maybe between this project, that project, and like they're being really vulnerable with me, and I'm like, Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because I'm celebrating whatever is happening in their life along the way that's going to lead to their personal development and growth.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's forming their character, like, as we're speaking. Like,
Yep.
I have zero expectation of someone being in that other bubble that was all the way over here, because I'm super excited about what's happening right here.
Yep.
In the middle.
And that other bubble doesn't even exist, because like if you really think about it, like if this really was where you wanted to go immediately, then as soon as you got there, then this would be the new one you wanted to go to. That was nothing. I need to get all the way over here. So it's like you're never happy. You're never happy. So why not live kind of along the path, right? Instead of living in point A and point B, live in point A.1, A.2, A.3, A.4. Like just live along the way. And that's that whole, focusing on the process instead of the journey. And that doesn't resonate with a lot of people because they're outcome focused, which is cool. We're all outcome focused. But you know what? The process can be an outcome. If all you have is A and B, then there's one milestone to celebrate. But if you have all the process in between, you have unlimited milestones to celebrate.
Amazing.
To think that the outcome is not, or that the journey is not the outcome, is kind of a ridiculous realization. Like, you realize how stupid the rest of it becomes. Like, it doesn't even matter. It's just an idea. Megan and I have been talking recently about how like certain topics and taboos are so charged with emotion, like money, like sharing what's in your bank account. Like, oh my God, it's this whole process. But when it comes down to it, when you strip away your self-worth attachment to an idea, money doesn't even exist half the time. It's just a freaking computer telling you a number with black ink on a screen.
It's true.
When you get down to that level, you realize, like, I could be attaching my self-worth to the tree outside my window right now.
Yeah.
And it would be just as arbitrary.
Yep.
So doing the work to detach ourselves from all of these ideas, the grandiose ideas that we have of ourselves, that we're not enough right in this moment. Like, the three of us are exactly where we need to be right now.
Yeah, because you know what? If we weren't, we wouldn't be.
Right.
We would be somewhere else.
Deep thoughts.
I mean, that's like the crux of Byron Katie's work. I know you guys are familiar with Byron Katie, but that's like, I would advise everybody, I would invite everybody watching this to go watch, like go binge on her videos, because that's essentially what she tells you is like, and I love when she calls people like honey and sweetheart and, oh honey, you're fine where you are. Do you really need more money? I mean, has anybody ever really needed more money than they had? Like you don't. It's just, it's a myth, and it's all a matter of trying to create or preserve some kind of security or something. It's just it's weird because things like money's like the only utility that we have that we try to stockpile, right? Like, oh
my God.
If you live so like funny. In a developed country like we do, and we're blessed to be in this developed country, but like I have never once said, hey sweetie, I don't know where electricity is going to come from next month, so we should probably save it. Let's save all that electricity and the water, save all the water, because I don't know where that utility is going to come from next month. Just save it, stockpile it, just empty out all the Gatorade bottles and fill them with water, and let's save them. And the same thing happens. So I think that happens actually with two things. I think money and love actually are the two things that we try to stockpile, right? That we try to like save and hold on to. And that's not the way it works. That's not the way that utility works. And that's not the way it comes back to you, is by stockpiling it.
We need to have many, many conversations like these, because I feel like boys and girls, we have a lot to say about things like these.
Yes, yes.
But I am going to cut us off.
No.
Bid us so long farewell. Bid us a goodbye.
You have a beautiful voice.
She does. She does. Yeah.
And the reason why I'm cutting us off, though, is because we've said so many important things in this conversation already. And I really want people to maybe even go back and watch this video again, take notes, digest the resources that Jason had recommended, and really think about the things. And then maybe even pick something in your world that's within that like small outside of comfort zone, and just start friggin' doing it.
Dude, and share it with us. Share it with us so we can encourage and celebrate you along your way. Seriously. We want to be there
whatever
with you.
Whatever you choose to do, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Krystal.
No, please.
Whatever you choose to do, like the other thing that I think is really important is just do it for today. Right? Like people ask me, how did you lose 130 pounds? I didn't. I lost 1 pound 130 times. Oh, right? Yeah. So do it just for today. Don't worry about it being a habit. Don't worry about doing it for 21 days to make it a part of your psyche. Just fucking do it for today.
And you know what? Have fun.
Yes. What the crap with
Christ,
What the crap? Seriously.
That's it. This doesn't have to be like, oh, my self-worth, my mean, but I'm not going to be worthy of a relationship or get married ever or be able to have that. Just have fun. Crap.
My foot is like flying in the air in celebration for fun. Yay!
Yay for fun. Anyway.
So right.
Well, just to both of you guys, I love you so much. And we also love our viewers. So if you have any follow-up questions that you would like to shoot over to us to ask Jason, I'm sure he would be happy to address them. And you can also, if you feel moved, you can get in touch with Jason through his website. We'll also put his contact below. And he's a fabulous coach, an amazing person to work with who will make all the difference in your life, as he already has in mine and in Krystal's. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, keep pondering the unfathomable deep things of everyday existence. And we will put them into the next episode of What the Crap.
You guys inspire me so much. I love you. Thank you so much for having me. You guys are absolute rock stars.
Thank you, Jason.
Muchas veces, amor. Ciao.
Peace.
Bye.